Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle is the movie I am reviewing. It's not a movie that it's been a while since I've seen this movie. Came out in 2004. Yes, correct. 2004, directed by Danny Leiner, who directed a bunch of other comedies, including Dude, Where's My Car? Which is interesting. I really enjoyed Dude, Where's My Car? Which came out in the year 2000. Two stoners, but they never really smoke weed. But this I enjoy quite a bit more. As a stoner road movie / One Crazy Night movie, you have John Cho and Cal Penn. Cho plays Harold. Cal Penn plays Kumar. Two college-aged dudes, I guess. No, they're out of college. Well, I guess out of, whatever, to get the first aspect of college. John Cho, Harold, is working as an investment banker, and Kumar, his parents want him to become a doctor. His dad's a doctor. He wants him to become a doctor. He has a meeting with, what's his name? Fred Willard. Recently passed away. Rest in peace, Fred Willard. He's having an interview with him, and he just doesn't give a shit about it. He's more excited about going home and getting baked with his roommate, Harold, than he is about this interview to become a doctor, which he can effortlessly become because he is brilliant. Which I also enjoy the fact that this movie has a smart stoner, because most stoners are portrayed as dumb. Most comedies use stupidity as a way for them to be funny. This movie has two smart characters. They just happen to do dumb stuff. But stupidity isn't the comedy, whereas so many comedies, it's just like, oh, the person is stupid, so that's funny. Or the person is fat, that's funny. It's like, no, it's like this. There's situations that are funny. There's things that can happen to your characters that are funny. Smart people can make bad choices. That can be funny. So that's what this movie, to me, is. I took 2 pages of notes watching this movie. It's an hour and a half long movie. I rarely take 2 pages of notes. I will solidly fill a single page. Like maybe Dune, I wrote 2 pages. I doubt it. But I wrote 2 pages of notes for this because that's just how much stuff happens in this movie. Right? It's a One Crazy Night type of a movie. These 2 stoners, right? Kumar, played by Cal Penn, got a 1/4 ounce of weed, and he wants to get baked with his best buddy and roommate, Harold. That's all he wants to do, despite also wanting to use his nose hair trimmers to trim his bush, his nutsack. He wears a shirt that's hilarious. Kumar. I love Bush, not the pussy, not the president. It's funny. That's funny. They have neighbors in their apartment complex, 2 Jewish guys who are. Does it have their names on here? It's Rosenberg, Eddie K. Thomas, who is from the comedy franchise known as American Pie. And David Krumholtz, Goldstein and Rosenberg, who are their neighbors in their apartment complex, also stoners. So anyway, Harold and Kumar get baked, and they have the idea, the urge, the craving after a commercial comes on the TV for White Castle, which I've never had actual White Castle. I've never been to a White Castle. They're primarily on the East Coast, as far as I know, and I've never been on the East Coast. But I have had and do enjoy way too much. I enjoy them. The White Castle burgers that you get in the freezer section of your grocery store. I'm telling you, they are the best thing that can come out of a microwave. They are delicious, fluffy, just like perfect amount of flavors. So good. Small, so you can feel better when you eat a lot of them. Actually, you kind of feel worse. I just ate 4. I ate 4 of these. But it's like knowing, and when I watched this movie the first time back in 2004, I had never had, they didn't have the freezer ones. I had no idea what these, and I didn't smoke weed when I first watched this movie. I didn't start smoking weed till I turned 30, which is 2010, I believe. So I didn't know, I couldn't comprehend what it feels like to be high, the paranoia, the kind of, I mean, you do make bad decisions when you're high. You can. It happens because it's not, you're not using your brain till you be really creative with things. But like logical stuff that seems to would make a lot of sense to a sober brain can easily be overlooked and provide for a lot of comedy in this movie. And I think that's why I like this movie so much, is because it feels unlike Dude, Where's My Car? Like where the comedy is just they're dumb. And I haven't watched that one in forever, but this one feels more smart. But a lot of things happen in this movie. There's characters in this movie that are interesting. These extreme dudes who are described at the end of this movie as skateboard hooligans, which I think is a little bit disparaging to people who skate. I don't think skateboarders are necessarily these racist douchebags that are the extreme bunch. They're always screaming extreme. They're very racist. I mean, the racist... another thing that the comedies like to use as like a shortcut is racism. This one, the racism is clearly they're not characters that you look up to. They're bad guys. These racists that are, these extreme guys. Racist, homophobic, it's all from them. Really. I mean, there's a slight gay joke when Harold and Kumar go to their neighbors to see if they want to go with them to White Castle. And when they leave, they're like, oh, which one do you think's the pitcher, which one's the catcher? And then, but it's like also, it's played as like, oh, which one do you think's gay? It's like, oh, you want to suck on this pipe? Which, if you've ever smoked weed, a lot of the pipes that you smoke weed out of, a lot of the devices you smoke weed out of look like penises. So the joke in this movie is actually how ridiculous it is for people who smoke weed out of penis-like things to be saying homophobic jokes. Like, it just, that is what's funny about this movie. So it's definitely not only a smarter, just kind of a teen raunchy comedy, but also a stoner movie. Because they're not stupid stoners, right? There's the great scene where they're in the hospital, right? Harold got bit on the neck by a raccoon. They go to a hospital to make sure he doesn't have rabies. We see Ryan Reynolds being his Ryan Reynolds self. It was at this moment where I realized that it wasn't Deadpool that made Ryan Reynolds start just doing the Ryan Reynolds thing in every movie, which I talked about Red Notice on Monday's episode. He's been doing it forever because he is doing his Ryan Reynolds thing in this movie as well, where he plays a doctor. He assumes that Harold and Kumar are doctors and he rushes them into surgery. But Kumar is legit, knows what he's doing and performs the surgery and asks the guy who he just saved where the White Castle is because they got lost. Right? They're not just dumb stoners. It's not like Pineapple Express. Like, yes, a lot of stoners are stupid, but there's like people that smoke a lot of weed that are very successful and do a lot of things. Like smoking weed doesn't necessarily, that's just a propaganda. Like the whole like stoners are lazy propaganda is like just the old school propaganda that's still around and bullshit. A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. So this movie, I enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that, it's a smart stoner comedy. It's a smart raunchy comedy. You also have Harold's character is very shy dude. He's got a crush on one of his other neighbors, this attractive woman that he can't muster the courage to speak to her when they're in an elevator. They live on the same floor. So it's also a story about Harold discovering courage, being courageous. Maybe a little bit over the line at the end of the movie where he has his courage and he goes in for a kiss, but he pulls back, and then you see her kind of go towards him as if to say that she's into it. He never asks for consent, but it's definitely shown that she's into it. Other than that, I mean, that's probably the most cancel-y aspect of this movie. Because it also shows cops. Like, the bad guys in this are the racist white dudes that I would say are more like Proud Boy-ish type of dudes, like bro dude guys. They would all have like beards and like hats, trucker hats or whatever, like longer beards, and then like manicured, the Proud Boy look. And then cops are super horrible in this movie as well. Like they are in like this area where they're waiting. Harold and Kumar, they're waiting at a stoplight. It's like midnight. Nobody's around at all. And they're waiting. Of course, Harold is by the book all the time, waiting for the crosswalk sign to turn on for them to walk. And Kumar's just like, let's just go. There's nobody around. This thing is taking forever. And of course, right when they get on the other side, there's a cop that pulls them over. And the cop's racist, making comments about Kumar's name. It's like all of the racism that would be your main characters saying at each other as the joke in a lesser movie. It is the bad guys in this movie are all doing the things that they do, which is being racist and homophobic and like taking advantage of their privilege to be assholes. So of course they get arrested, or Harold gets arrested because he goes to punch Kumar and accidentally punches the cop. But then also that same cop later on, they're in the thing, right? And you got Brandon, right? Is it Brandon's weed? Where they're at Brad. So they were at Princeton trying to get weed. There's a funny scene with the Asian stereotype, which, Harold falls victim to the all these Asian math nerds are not into smoking weed. And then you find out they're all like huge stoners. You have the hot girls playing battle shits in the bathroom. But anyway, they're at this police station where this guy, Brad, who was the weed dealer at Princeton that tried to overcharge Kumar, because Harold threw the weed out the window when they're on their first starting to go to White Castle. They're at this police station, and you see like Brad's mom is there to bail him out. You know, Brad, this scrawny little guy who still lives with mommy and daddy, who pay for everything and get him out of all of his trouble. She's paying off the cops, thanking them for letting him go. And the cop gives this kid, he like grips his ass cheek, like in the most, and I think smells his fingers, or maybe that was cut down to not necessarily show him smelling his finger, but I think he smelled his fingers after his fingers were deep inside this kid's asshole. Right? Cops in this movie are not portrayed as good people, which I appreciate quite a bit. It also commented on while they're in the prison. You have this black character, Jackson, who is the super Zen Buddha of detainees because he's so used to cops constantly, doing all of the things cops do to black people that's not murder, because he's alive in this cell. But it's just like another day for him. And there's the scene where Kumar calls in a fake shooting at a park, so all the cops are like, yeah, let's go kill him, to empty out the police station so he can break out Harold. And when they break out, he finds the weed, has this dream of this spousal abuse, just toxic relationship that he has, this marriage and life, this love story that ends badly for him and this bag of weed, which is hilarious. Just like abusive relationship with this bag of weed. But because of that, the cops show back up. And even though Harold and Kumar are just standing outside of the jail cell, or I think Harold's still inside the jail and the door's closed, but it's unlocked, they're like, oh, Jackson's trying to escape. And then they're like, they have him, all 10 cops have him pinned against the wall, and he's like, they're taking his book. He's like, oh, he's got a gun. He's like, no, it's a book. Like, just showing a clear and present light on a situation that has been so obvious for so long that it's the punchline for a Harold and Kumar movie. This like complete blatant like stance that cops have, and how fake every one of them are, how just horrible all cops are. Like, maybe there's a good apple somewhere. Like, cops are bad when you think they're doing a good job when you see them skateboarding or playing basketball. Like, they're like, anytime they're actually not doing their job at all, that's when they're the only time they're considered to be good cops. Like, oh, look at this good cop. He's skateboarding with kids. Like, no, that's not his job. Just because he's not killing somebody doesn't mean he's good at his job. It's so backwards, everything. And I love this movie for like pointing out so much of that. So yeah, you have these racists, you have these, you have the cops, the tow truck driver in this one. At some point, they crash their car, and they need to get it towed out of the ravine that they crashed in. And the tow truck driver is like one of the gross dudes. I'm always going to see that guy as Casey Jones from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. I think maybe the second one he was in. But disgusting. And he takes him home to his home where he's got this hot wife, and then they want to have sex with him. I mean, he's just like one of the most disgusting humans ever. Like a oversized bridge troll with like pulsating and pus leaking out of like boils that are all over it. It's just like the most disgusting character. And also good makeup though. Like it's super exaggerated, but on the same level, like almost believable. Like it's done really well, and it's a really fun situation. He like saves them. He's like, go inside. He's a super Christian guy singing all these Christian hymns and all this stuff. His wife, super hot, super into Christ, but also super into, foursomes. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. Just kind of a funny thing. It's also this movie, I believe, I don't know if it's for real, but it's got to be the Neil Patrick Harris Assance. Like, this had to have been the thing that relaunched his career. I don't know what he was doing before this. It had to have been before How I Met Your Mother. But this was like Neil Patrick Harris being like a just super drugged up superstar male, like heterosexual, like predator is Neil Patrick Harris in this movie, who they pick up hitchhiking. He ends up stealing their car. You got the great the convenience store scene where Kumar is speaking to the cashier in Hindi. Meanwhile, the racist extreme dudes are kayaking through an aisle. Like, the white privilege versus just, a couple people that understand other languages than English. It's just like this movie doesn't, it never has to resort to rate. Like, that's the thing. So many of these kinds of movies just do the homophobic thing. They just do the racist thing. And all of the characters in this movie that are doing those things are bad characters, which I really enjoyed that. So yeah, Neil Patrick Harris steals their thing. They end up having to ride a cheetah. So, of course, they get the weed after the jail. And they come across this cheetah. And they get the cheetah high. Like, the cheetah likes... you got the... Harold had beef jerky in his pocket that he took from his neighbor's apartment when they first left. And the cheetah found that in his pocket and is now like his buddy. And... so they decide to get the cheetah high and ride the cheetah. And, they go... It's like, that's probably the highest moment of this movie, I guess they crash, and then there's... Harold has this dream that's all animated, which is pretty, like, high type of stereotypical high kind of activities. But definitely getting a cheetah high and riding it is hilarious. They end up finding, so like later on, their neighbors, they ran into their neighbors again, almost getting in a car accident, but they ran into their neighbors and they're like, oh, they're going to a hot dog place. Like them talking about White Castle gave them the craving to go to this hot dog place. They're going to this hot dog place. So after they ride this cheetah, they come across this hot dog place, which of course the extreme dudes are at. But inside, they see their friends enjoying their hot dogs, enjoying the victory of their journey. Right? They had this goal. This journey was set in front of them to accomplish and get their reward of this treat that they've been drooling over. Right? And they see their friends enjoying it. Also, they see their friends one of their friends hooked up with one of the Asian chicks from the Princeton party that they told him after they got in the car. She's like, hey, you should go to this party. So you're seeing like them happy for their friends finding their success. And instead of being hating on them, which is another very typical thing that happens in just culture of America, is just hating on people. They are like they love the fact that their friends were able to successfully get to this hot dog place, and that just fuels their desire to complete their goal together that they made. Like, this epic journey must be completed. We must get White Castle, which I think is great. And of course, that you see like the extreme dudes being racist again. So they steal their car. Right? There's the whole motto that Jackson from prison told him, that like everything works out the way it should, which is not really true. But it's kind of an idea of like karma. And they want to be part of it. They want to be part of that karma. So after them being yelled at and threatened and assaulted, and, you know, racial insults being thrown their way from the extreme dudes, they end up stealing the car, which leads to an even funnier scene, because you see how fake these types of people are, right? You see the January 6th Proud Boys that are like just crying about every single aspect of being held accountable for their shit. Like, just how fake they are. Like, there's this fake machismo that they portray to the world, but then when they get called out on something, they crumble and they melt and they wither like the weakest existing thing known to man. So they steal their car, and of course, it's just female pop stars singing like emotional music, which I thought was hilarious, actually. They had what was that song? That song was because they end up singing it together. Hold On. Someday somebody's gonna make you want to turn around and say goodbye. That song. And it's, of course, like Harold and Kumar are, they're comfortable in who they are and have no problem. It's not like an embarrassing thing that they're singing this song together. But of course, for the extreme dudes, it would be like if somebody found out, like if they went back and told, like they found him at school and like, hey, they listened to Hold On by Wilson Phillips. Their just reality would crumble. They wouldn't be able to handle it because they're so used to living in this fake existence. So yeah, so they steal the car. Hilarious song. You get this, moment where they get to sing. They're kind of on a high. They're like, oh, we got like this third wind has hit them. And cop starts chasing them. They end up on a cliff. So they take a paraglider from the roof to fly down to a White Castle that's in the distance, as the cop is approaching. And they fly down. They get their epic meal. They get that moment that they loved seeing from their friends, seeing the victory their friends had, getting to the hot dog place. Harold and Kumar finally get that victory, just gorging. Of course, they didn't have any money, but thankfully Neil Patrick Harris showed up again and felt bad for stealing the car, so he paid for the White Castle, which is great, kind of like a little redemption for him, who we saw for a moment after he stole the car. There's the scene where him and two naked women are poking out of the top of the roof of Harold's car that he stole, and he's like doing lines of blow off of her naked tits. Forgot to mention that part. So he comes back and he feels bad because there's some stains that need to be removed, and he pays for their White Castle. And he showed up to White Castle because they had been talking about it so passionately that at the end of his crazy night, he was hungry for some White Castle, and he showed up, ends up paying for their White Castle. They gorge, and then they drive back home. And of course, guess who it is? It's, what was her name? Mary? I forget. It's the woman that Harold has a crush on that lives in the apartment complex as well, who they had seen going into a movie or coming out of 16 Candles, which earlier in the movie Harold was talking about when they were getting high before they saw the White Castle ad. He was going to put on 16 Candles. So he knows they're into the same stuff. Makes it a little bit more easy to be confident. So it shows, kind of Kumar forcing Harold a little bit to talk to her. And he ends, like I said, there's the kind of, like, potentially the most, like, she didn't actually give consent, but she showed that she was into it. But he just kissed her. It's one of those things where in movies where it's like all a dude has to do to get a woman to fall in love with you is just to grab her and kiss her. Because assuming that she likes you is enough. But it at least showed that she was into it also. But anyway, he gets this kiss. She's on her way out of town. She's going to Amsterdam. So she can't hang out with him. She's literally packed up and heading to the airport. But at least, he got the kiss, and, they're looking forward to seeing more of each other when she gets back. Which is great. It's just great. So he goes in, and he tells Kumar, and Kumar's like, even though they're like, Harold had overcome his boss showed up at the White Castle, and it's probably how he got even more of the confidence, because he confronted his boss, who said he was going to be busy at a conference or whatever. Meanwhile, he was just out partying. So he got found out. And that gave Harold some more confidence to kiss this girl that he likes. Also Kumar, like, I guess I will be a doctor. Like, they're kind of both turning a new leaf, as it were, after they had successfully gotten their White Castle. Like, maybe I should clean up my act and get my things together. But of course, as soon as Harold comes in and tells him that this chick that he just kissed is going to Amsterdam, it's like, yes, we are going to Amsterdam. This is happening. I am not going to become a doctor. This is what we're doing. Weed is legal in Amsterdam. Which, when this movie came out, weed wasn't. I think in California it was medically legal. Definitely, it was medically legal because this movie does a thing that Half Baked does also, which is ridiculous. Is the whole idea that medical weed is accessible in hospitals, which I guess this movie debunks that. Like, they think that there's medical weed in the hospital, but then when they go into surgery, Ryan Reynolds tells them that there's no medical weed here, which is true. That's not where, it's like pharmacies don't carry medical weed. That's not how medical weed works. But like in Half Baked, he steals weed. He like gets a prescription from a doctor and steals weed from the pharmacy, which that doesn't exist. That's not how medical weed ever worked. You never went to a drug pharmacy, a pharmacy that gives you pills. Those are the big pharma drug stores. That's not the weed drug stores. The weed, those are dispensaries. Those are different. So anyway, weed is legal in Amsterdam. Let's go. And that's how it ends. Now, I've seen the sequels to this, but not as many times as I've seen this one. So it's going to be interesting to see, the next two movies and see how they go. But I love this movie. I really do. I really enjoyed going through it again. It was surprising. I was kind of like hesitant because, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to talk about comedies, but this one was so good, so funny, and like holds up really well, I think, on all of the levels. I really enjoyed it. Bobby Lee also is great in this movie, had a little small part in it. Ryan Reynolds, obviously, before he became, I'm just tired of Ryan Reynolds. But yeah. Anyway, Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Check it out if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while. I just spoiled the entire movie, but it's so good. It's so funny. Watch it. Again, go enjoy it. It's really good. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out! So one last thing. I've never done this. I forgot. There's a couple things I forgot to talk about Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Let's burn this motherfucker down when they went to the hot dog shack, or not, hamburger shack that they thought was a White Castle. Hilarious. The scene where Jamie Kennedy just shows up randomly to take a piss next to Kumar out on the side of the road. It's this random location. Also funny. But that's about all I wanted to say.